Alright, take one. So, as you can see by the photos that I just showed you, we got burgled. Yeah, that's probably one of the shittest things to ever happen to me. It sucks. There is no way about it. It sucks. It's been an absolute problem and made the second half of 2024, when this happened, very difficult for me because it impacted a lot of my projects that I was working on. It increased my stress load. Work was already incredibly stressful at the time, and it was just not something that was needed at the time. Not that being burgled or robbed, whatever way you want to fucking call it, is needed, but yeah, it was extremely stressful to say the least. Whilst I go ahead and I cut up these slides that I will have already shown to you beforehand, I will just kind of give you a little backstory. So back around July last year, our neighbours came in at about 5, 6 in the morning because they live below us. I live in an apartment building, and it was like the 6th or so leak that we had in the 3 or so years that we had lived here, between us and them. Obviously they were getting quite irritated by it. We rent, by the way, and yeah, it turned out after a number of weeks of waiting for the plumbers to go through and figure it out that the tile work in the bathroom was done incredibly poorly, and every time we were having a shower, or if the bath water was really high and it hit the tiles, then it was seeping through the tiles, going downstairs to their newly renovated apartment and destroying their kitchen. It was right through all their insulation. Yeah, so we had to move out in September. On September the 2nd, we flew down to Christchurch and then out to the little town of Rangiora, where I'm from, to go stay at my mum's place for about a week before we would stay at a friend's place in Christchurch. Yeah, so on September the 2nd, we flew down to Christchurch to Rangiora, and then on I think the 7th of September, which was like the Saturday, I think. Point being is we'd left on like Monday, and then we'd only been away for 5 nights or so, and then on the Friday night we had been burgled, and we had had a friend come to check on the place on Saturday, only for them to walk in and find a cop here. Of course, the cop was like, "Why are you here?" But luckily our friend contacted us, and that ruined our day, to say the least. It ruined our week, it ruined our trip, it's ruined things ever since. That's the thing that people don't talk about when it comes to being burgled or anything wrong happening to you, is it's not just that one thing, it's the myriad of impacts that it has with all your personal relationships and everything else, your job, that people don't count into when it comes to the social impact and the justice. I don't think it does, and I don't think it does with our sentencing, but that's another thing I'm going to talk to you about in a moment. We flew back on the day, and one of my mates was able to pick us up from Rangiora and drive us straight out to the airport, which was really helpful because it's about 50 or so kilometers from Rangiora out to the airport, and we didn't have access to a car, and we didn't want to try take public transport because that was just going to be too stressful. When we were at the airport around 3 o'clock, and by this had been only 3 hours since we had been told, we got a phone call, and our flatmate had informed us that the burglar had been arrested. They had stolen from her as well, and they had taken some checks from her workplace. The way the burglar got caught was that they were picked up for another burglary. They had our flatmate's stuff on them. The police went ahead and contacted her workplace, and she was in Australia at the time on a little holiday, and was able to then talk to the police officers. The police officers were able to put the two cases together, and that person has been done for a second burglary. Currently, they haven't been able to make release. They're currently still in jail. There is a chance that by the time they actually go through the courts, because they're trying to fight these charges at the moment, that they will go ahead and basically be convicted, but they've basically possibly served their time by being in jail for so long, which is, I understand, but I still don't think is good enough in my opinion. This person has fucked with our lives, and if I ever get my hands on them, I'll say no more. Actually, what I will say is that if I had been here whilst this was happening, they'd be walking out. They wouldn't be walking out of here. Unlike some people, I don't have a qualm using violence if needed. I know people say that's not the thing you're supposed to say, but I grew up with a military father. I have a different mindset than most people, and I really don't care to please people's so-called moralities when it comes to this kind of bullshit. One of the things that fucks me off about this whole thing is that we're not given their proper ID, who this person is. The justice system is incredibly skewed towards the perpetrator. If someone does something against you, you should have the right to their name. Now, obviously, if you go beyond that, that's something else entirely. If someone has been accused of doing something towards you, you should have their full name written down. All they gave us was that person's name over the phone, and I don't think that's good enough. So we flew back to the house, and as you can see by this video footage and these photos, our house was turned up entirely upside down. Now, this person was one of the dumbest burglars ever. They stole my broken film cameras. So I'd actually left my old broken film cameras up in this spot right here, and they had gone ahead and stolen those, which was one of the reasons why I put those there. They actually found where I stored all my film cameras, and they didn't take pretty much any of them apart from one semi-broken Minolta, which I'm kind of annoyed about because I was going to use for a video because it creates some pretty cool double exposures, which I was hoping to do a video on, which I now no longer can do. They also stole my digital camera, which was, you know, this is a lesson for everyone that owns film cameras. Is not that it's guaranteed, but if you have digital cameras there, most people are idiots, and well, they're going to choose the digital camera over the film camera. They just see old stuff and think it's old, and well, luckily for me, at least they didn't take my film cameras, but I do use my digital camera. Whilst a lot of my videos are recorded on my iPhone, just because it's simply lighter, much more easier and convenient to carry around, especially when traveling. I do use my digital camera, and I've struggled to record a lot of videos since. I did pick up this Fujifilm TX10, and this Fujifilm TX10 is a full spectrum infrared camera. So it requires me having to put on this special filter, which blocks out that UV and infrared light that has since been able to be seen by the camera since its modification. But the filter doesn't work entirely true, so there is extra red hues in the video footage, and it's a bit of a struggle to remove them. I don't like to spend heaps of time editing my video footage. Adding on to the fact that it's got an APS-C sensor, that means that every one of my lenses is now cropped in, and that creates quite a bit of problem for myself when it comes to recording, because I'm actually having to keep the lenses further back than what I used to beforehand, and my digital camera that was stolen, my Sony A7 Mark II, had my 35mm lens on there, and that would have been perfect to put on this APS-C camera, so that way I could still get some much more tighter shots that I'm looking for. But I don't have that lens anymore because it got nicked with the camera, and I've not been able to find another one since, especially for the good price that I bought that one for, which was like $30. Overall, I'm not mad about the cost of the burglary. I'm in a place at the moment where I can afford to take those burdens and costs a lot better than a lot of other people. We came back to the house. The plumbers were there waiting for us. They had to change the locks when the burglary happened. They then informed us that they had left the key in the mailbox. And that is how the burglars had entered our apartment, which is extremely frustrating. Adding on to that, we found out from one of the other units, who we had never talked to, and this is why you should always talk to your neighbors and learn to know them. We have 2 doors to our building, and they had let them in via the intercom, literally like straight from the movies. Hi, sorry, I got locked out of my apartment, can you please let me in? Like, that level of stupidity bullshit actually fucking happened. And I'm sorry for the swearing, but honestly, I try to keep this channel inspirational, but if you want to know my real personality is someone that swears, and I really have no qualms about it. It's stupidity and bullshit. Whilst they were at least apologetic, it wasn't the only stupid incidents that those fucking morons occurred to the rest of the building. Not long after that, they had a fire alarm go off in their unit and decided to just leave the property instead of actually being there to sort it, especially when the alarm guys turned up and didn't have access to the property. Some people are born fucking stupid as far as I can tell. Anyway, it is incredibly invasive when people come into your house. These photos here are incredibly invasive if you really think about it as well. But my plans had already been ruined by the trip. I had to reorganize a bunch of things. I thought I might as well make the most of this opportunity. It's not a video that I would ever plan to make. I mean, obviously that would be insurance fraud or some kind of other bullshit. I'm only showing you this video now because we've moved out of this apartment. I no longer live here, and so therefore I feel comfortable displaying where I live. I thought this apartment would be the safest apartment that I'd ever had. Safest place I'd ever been to, because you know it's an apartment building. It's not too big a complex, so there's not heaps of people going in and out. There's only about 7 units. It's in a very, very nice upper class neighborhood where there is an incredibly low crime rate according to the statistics for burglaries around here, and something we'd actually looked into before we had moved in, and it was something that I checked up on every once in a while. Yeah, when we came through the property, we found that Ching's laptop had been stolen, and so had her Nintendo Switch, which I bought for her. Her jewelry was taken. I, for the most part, didn't actually have most of my stuff stolen through, as I just mentioned. I did have the inconvenience of my digital camera being stolen. I may be an analog guy, but that digital camera does come in handy every once in a while. I'm lucky. My guitars didn't get taken. I have quite a few guitars on the property, about 6 or 7, and my 2 rarer guitars that are from my deceased father, they weren't taken. Luckily, one of them was stored elsewhere outside of the property because it's the one thing I care about the most, more than my cameras. That wasn't taken, and the other one, they found it, but it wasn't in good condition at the time, and I've actually recently paid about $1,500 to get it repaired. That one they didn't take. So I'm quite lucky in that regards, and for the most part, this person didn't take much. They only had a handful of boxes with them. We have things of value in the house, it's just not stuff that other people care about, and that's the great thing about having something that is particular and unique, is that other people don't see the value in it, and that's the great thing about art, is that other people don't see the value in it quite often, which may be depressing at sometimes, but in other times it works out to your benefit in some regards. The other thing that was stressful about this whole situation was that we had been unable to stay in Wellington. We didn't have anyone we could stay with for the entire time that the works were going on, which was about a month. So after a few days at the house, what we ended up having to do is go back down to Christchurch before going down to Dunedin, which we had already planned. We had taken some extra safety measures since the burglary, including, installing security cameras and taking a few more things off site. But it's just incredibly frustrating. It was, once that thing happens to you, it can happen again, right? So like, if you've ever been in a car crash, the chances of you being in a car crash again, I don't know if it is statistically higher, but it feels like it should be, because once you've gone through a shitty moment that hopefully you never go through, it just feels like it can happen. It feels like other shitty things can happen. And, I try to live a stress-free life. I really try to avoid stress as much as possible. I'm not the best with handling it. I either shut down or I get extremely angry. So I really try to actually go ahead and be proactive with my life and avoid stress. And it just sucks when it comes to you and you can't do anything about it except try handle it as adultly as possible. And in this shitty justice system that, again, favors the criminal, with all these social justice warriors who think blah, 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 things don't matter, material things don't matter, I fucking disagree. Material things do matter. I'm sorry that this is probably just going to be a random ass rant by the time that I edited and put this video together, because I'm not in a good place at the moment, and I'm just putting this video together. I'm just recording it and just saying whatever's on my mind. Material things matter. If my dad's guitar had been stolen, there's no place safe for that person. I'll put it that way. I'll put it very, very fucking bluntly. My cameras can be stolen, I can replace those. Like, not everything is material. Objects in your life represent both time, place, emotional aspects, love, loss, and everything else. Sure, you can replace a favorite pen, but if it's maybe given to you by someone, you can't replace that. You lose that, and it represents loss in your life. That's what happens when people steal. It isn't just like, oh, we'll take a little bit of money. Like, money's nothing. At the end of the day, it's money. You get money, you spend money, you lose money, you win some money. Like, that's just, it's not as consequential. I mean, it's consequential to your long-term health, but it's not consequential to your soul, to who you are, to your identity, to your memories. And physical items are, they absolutely represent your memories. And, I'm lucky, I have really good memory, but other people don't as much. And this is one of the reasons why I photograph, is it's a way of collecting memories. And, this shitty moment is something that I'm going to collect and keep. I'm going to keep it with me. I'm going to use it as motivation. Those times when you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't bother to go do this extra step to keep things secure. Well, this here is the motivation for me to always do that extra step. If we had gone ahead and, put some security cameras in, they're not expensive, then maybe we could have got notifications. Maybe we could have slept through them, but maybe we could have got notifications and maybe the person could have been arrested on site, and some of our stuff that we didn't get back could have been found. Maybe I could have had my digital camera back almost immediately. Like, yeah, things matter. And I am sick and tired of fuckwits saying that material things do not matter. I would love to see some people who say that go through it and see how they fucking feel, because that hippie ass bullshit of anti-materialism needs to fucking stop, because it is only ever said by people who don't ever contribute to anything. In my experience, in my anecdotal experience. I'm not really sure this video is going to be the most inspirational video, and some of you may disagree with my points, but honestly, you're not the one who got burgled, so I don't give a fuck. Just, you know, take the key points away is that your memories, your objects do matter. If you really care about the stuff, take the best precautions that you can do. Take the little extra burden of getting yourself a security camera, putting stuff away in more hard to find places. Make sure that you've got people to look after your place, because you just don't know if it's going to happen to you. Just because statistically it might seem unlikely doesn't mean it won't. It definitely can happen to you, and it happened to me. And obviously I'm still quite frustrated and angry by it. And I am a very resentful, vindictive person. So, and to the person that stole from me, I hope they get their fucking just desserts in the future. As for my Sony a7 Mark II, I did have a hunt for it. It never turned up online. I have a suspicion at this time that the guy who's currently in jail for the burglary, he has gone ahead and stored it somewhere because it hasn't turned up anywhere. I do have the metadata coded and tracked online, so if photos are taken with it, I can go ahead and trace that. And I did go ahead and on like Facebook Marketplace and Trade Me, which is our equivalent to eBay, I went ahead and tracked listings for my camera. However, it never turned up, and I'm certain of it that it didn't end up in one of those places, partly because it had some identifiable marks on the back of the camera from a little chip on the screen. And as I mentioned earlier, the 35mm lens was on the camera, and it's quite a unique setup to put a Pentax 35mm on a Sony a7 Mark II. It's not a normal combo, and it just didn't turn up anywhere. I hope this doesn't happen to you, and I don't know if you really got anything out of this, but as always, it's been real, guys. Too real. Anyway, until next time.